So what happens when a single YouTube star brings an entire capital city to a standstill? Well, it's way more than just a viral moment. It's a look into a future where entertainment, tourism, and the law are all crashing into each other in ways we are just not ready for. Because what went down in Kenya with the streamer IShowSpeed, it shines a massive spotlight on a huge legal void that honestly affects all of us.
It all starts with this number, 30,000. That's about how many people just flooded the streets of Nairobi back on January 11th, 2026. And no, this wasn't for a politician, it wasn't for some big national holiday, it was for one person.
And really, this quote just says it all. It captures the sheer power and, yeah, the absurdity of that moment. A city with millions of people just completely mesmerized, brought to a total stop by one kid, a live streamer. So, who is this guy?
That kid was IShowSpeed. And this number? 48 million? That's his global audience. That many subscribers on YouTube. And get this, while he was literally just sitting in Nairobi traffic, his channel blew past that milestone, broadcasting Kenya to an audience the size of a pretty big country.
Okay, so you'd think this might have been a problem, right? Chaos in the streets. But from an official point of view, this visit wasn't a problem at all. It was a total triumph. Kenya's government didn't just put up with his visit, they rolled out the red carpet. They saw it as a massive, unprecedented win for the country.
And the level of state involvement here is, honestly, it's pretty wild. We're talking a welcome video from the president himself, a one-on-one meeting with the cabinet secretary for tourism. Security was coordinated at the deputy inspector general level. That's high up. The Kenya Tourism Board handled all his transport and access. For them, it was a marketing dream come true. They got to rebrand Kenya for a Gen Z audience, and it cost them absolutely nothing.
And yeah, that's the story most people saw. A huge, wild success. But this is where our story takes a sharp turn. This is where we have to pivot and start asking the really uncomfortable questions, the ones that kind of got lost in all the excitement. Questions about the law, about rights, and about who really came out on top here.
First and foremost, let's talk about consent. I mean, just look at those crowds. Every single face in that live stream is a real identifiable person. Were any of them asked if it was okay to broadcast their image to 48 million people and monetize it? The answer, let's be real, it's a hard no. And second, what about ownership? When IShowSpeed visited the Masai Mara, or when local music was just playing in the background while he toured a market, who owns that culture? Does a Maasai community have a legal right to how their traditions are shown? Does a musician have a claim when their song gets picked up and streamed to the world? The stream just sucks it all in, but the law, it's got nothing to say.
And this right here brings us to the most pointed question of them all. It smells like a double standard. Was this famous creator from another country being celebrated by the very same government that would turn around and fine a local Kenyan creator for doing the exact same thing? Let's dig into that. Look, these aren't just, what-if questions. They point to three very specific, very real holes in Kenya's legal system when it comes face-to-face with a global mega-streamer.
So, problem number one is what we're calling the bystander problem. Kenya's Data Protection Act is actually super clear on this. You need consent to collect images of people you can identify. In fact, Kenya's data regulator has already fined local influencers for this very thing. But for a foreign creator on a US-based platform moving at the speed of a live event, the law's on the books, but the power to enforce it just evaporates. It's this classic showdown, a country's laws versus the reality of a global platform.
Problem two is all about that cultural ownership. Now, Kenya's Copyright Act does protect original work, but, and here's the kicker, YouTube's terms of service, the rules IShowSpeed operates under, grant the platform a worldwide license to use and distribute all the content. So, if you're a Maasai elder or a street musician whose art gets captured, who do you even talk to? There's just no clear legal path for you to make a claim.
And this slide just lays out the double standard perfectly. On one side, you have a local Kenyan artist, Mbaramba. In 2024, he was fined millions of shillings and had to delete over 1,000 of his videos because of licensing issues. On the other side, you have a foreign creator who filmed thousands without consent and got a state-supported welcome. The contrast is just wow. It shows you how the law isn't being applied evenly at all.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. The big takeaway here is that this isn't just a one-off story about IShowSpeed in Kenya. This whole case is a perfect example of a brand new global thing that our source is calling streamer tourism.
So here's what we're talking about. And let's be clear, this isn't your standard travel vlog. This is about broadcasting entire countries,
live, totally unedited, to these massive global audiences, basically turning nations themselves into monetized content. It's incredibly powerful, it's immediate, and right now it's all happening in a legal Wild West.
So, if the old rules are broken, what's next? How do we fix this? Well, instead of just pointing out all the problems, the analysis we're looking at actually suggests a pretty concrete framework for how we can start building the rules for this new reality.
The proposed solution has 3 main pillars. First up, create special streamer visas. This would be a specific entry category for big-time creators that comes with clear rules about getting consent and making agreements with local communities. Second, hold the platforms themselves accountable. We're talking YouTube, TikTok, Twitch. Bring them to the table to talk about revenue sharing and their data obligations. And third, create specific modern legal protections for cultural and indigenous intellectual property.
And all of this brings us to the final question, the really big one, the one that looks past this one event and asks if we are genuinely ready for what's coming next.
Because here's the thing you have to remember. Yeah, the visit was a massive win for Kenya's image. It created a ton of positive buzz. But just because nothing went wrong, this time, doesn't mean the system works. A good outcome doesn't excuse a weak or even non-existent legal framework. The risks were very real.
So, we'll end on this thought. The point here isn't to, shut the door on creators. It's about being prepared. As this whole streamer tourism thing gets bigger and bigger, the real question for Kenya and for every other country out there is whether they're going to build the legal and ethical rules needed for this new world, or if they're just going to wait for the next wave to crash on their shores.